Transportation Improvement Authority meeting on February 2nd, 2021. First is roll call, please.
Director Bradford?
Yes, or here.
Director Pendergraft? I'm sorry, he may be muted. Let me find him. Hey, Director Pendergraft?
I'm here.
Director Vasquez?
Here.
Director West?
Present.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, next is public communication. Any person may speak about any subject of concern within the jurisdiction of the authority, which is not on today's agenda. The total amount of time allotted shall be limited to a total of 15 minutes, and each individual or group will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Prior to that time, speakers are requested to fill out a request to speak card and submit it to the secretary. Obviously, that is very difficult to do virtually, so you can use the Zoom raise hand feature, or if your video is on, you can also, and you can't seem to get that to work, you can physically raise your hand. So do we have any public that wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda for today? Okay, I do not see any. So before we move on to the action items, I just wanted to give a real quick welcome to our two new directors, Director Pendergraft and Director Vasquez. So welcome aboard, gentlemen. Appreciate you having you guys on the board for SYTIA. So the first item under action items is A, approve the minutes of the August 4th, 2020 meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the board members? Okay. Anything from the public?
Yeah, I move to approve.
Okay. I have a first.
I'll second.
Have a second. Any comment from the public? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Director Bradford?
Yes.
Director Pendergraft?
Yes.
Director Vasquez?
Yes.
Director West?
Yes.
Thank you, that's unanimous.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, item B, receive update on comprehensive implementation strategy and provide input on direction. Mike, is this you handling this today?
I'm going to be doing the intro, yes. Thank you, okay. Supervisor Bradford. So yeah, Mike Lee, Yuba County Community Development. Last we met, and I don't recall when that was, but it's been several months now. We had an item in front of your board to award a contract to Docket Engineering for preparing a comprehensive implementation strategy. So we kicked that endeavor off, and we're excited to be in front of you today with a little update or progress report on where we're at and receive input for direction forward. So in particular with Docket Engineering, we have Liz Diamond and Matt Griggs, the two presenters today. And without further ado, we'll kick it off to them and then have time for discussion after the presentation.
Thank you, Mike, and members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this update on the work we've been doing to develop your comprehensive implementation strategy. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay. In theory, you'll be able to see on your screen some slides, and that way I'll be able to point to some things. Is anyone able to see the screen okay? All right, great. So as Mike said, we got underway on the strategy a month or so, towards the end of summer. And since, well, now if I can get the thing to move here, we'll be in good shape. All right, here we go. For some reason there we go. So since we've started, of course, we started in a fact-finding mode. We had several meetings with city and county staff collectively to make sure that we were up to speed on the current issues and thinking of things that were going on in your communities, which of course you know better than anyone. With that information, we started to refine the various city of projects, and in doing so, strategizing a way that we could accomplish delivery sooner than later on some of those projects. You know, money is always very scarce. These are big projects, so they take many steps. So we did quite a bit of soul searching and strategizing amongst ourselves with the city and county staff. We then also reached out to Caltrans. We had a very productive meeting with Caltrans District 3. We met with District Director Amarjeet Menapal and some of his staff, and they provided some very good information that we'll touch on as we get to the exhibits. We also had discussions with PCTPA staff to get their insights on the tail end, if you will, of the Lincoln bypass and anything that we should know about as that project ended in the Sheraton area. We also had a conference call with representatives from Beale Air Force Base, which are obviously very important stakeholders in this region of the county and Wheatland. One of the other tasks that we got after at the beginning was to really try to focus our work collectively on to make sure we're all headed in the same direction. So we did develop a set of goals that will help guide us as we get further into the study and start looking at funding strategies and delivery strategies. And the goals kind of fell into two categories, one related more to the projects themselves, and then a category more related to process. So this is just a summary here of those items that were rose to the level of importance and goals. Of course, preserving what you have in your general plan. Both the county and the city of Wheatland have the realignment of State Highway 65 to the easterly side of its current alignment. And so preserving the ability to do that, whether it's in the near term or in the very far term, it's important to protect a corridor or an opportunity to do that. But recognizing that realignment, we're talking about a $300 million project, and no one has $300 million in their pockets to spend to do that project. So what can we do to kind of eat the elephant a bite at a time, provide some near-term benefit with some projects that have their own independent utility, have their own benefit, but don't preclude the ability in the future to realign the freeway or the highway, whichever it may be at the time. We also know that's very important to have a second access into the sports entertainment area, a connection to Spenceville Road from the south that would allow some of the traffic through downtown Wheatland to be diverted and reduce some of that congestion. And also to finish out the Route 70 Plumas Lake Boulevard. So those are basically the city of projects. But in implementing them, we also want to keep a mind on how we might leverage funds, what features of those projects might leverage grant funds so it'd be easier to deliver them, how we can coordinate them with other project funds that come available from time to time. Caltrans has SHOP projects and minor B projects that would facilitate state highway improvements. And then of course, developers are sometimes trying to advance their own agendas and in a collective fashion can save some funds or make it a reduce, throw away, that type of thing. It's also important to get these projects in your metropolitan transportation plan, sustainable communities strategy so that they can be eligible for funding. And then, of course, the meat of the report will be to outline some costs and try to work with you to develop some priorities on what you can do with the funds that you do have. So switching on to the projects, I have a series of 5 exhibits that have been shared with you. These are the same as what was in your packet, but I want to touch on a couple things. First, I want to point out that these exhibits are illustrative in nature. They do maintain highway curvature and things that would be needed for a project. So it gives you an idea of the spatial needs that you have for these projects. But they are not intended to say this is, the recommended adopt this location type of exhibit. These are to get people's wheels turning and to start thinking about what you have to do next. So here, basically, your city of projects include here's the connection to your State Route 70 and the finishing up of the Plumas-Arboga Road connection and that interchange. Here is South Beale Road, and this is just an example. I'm going to show you some alternatives of what you might do with a freeway or an extension of freeway that then connects to existing State Route 65. To the south, here's an example of a local road that could connect to Spenceville Road and eventually become part of what would be your fourth, not necessarily in order, but your realignment project here for a realigned state route. The next exhibits are just blow-ups. This is what is being advanced by the county in final design for the Plumas Lake extension, the loop on-ramp onto State Route 70, the grade separated crossing of the railroad and of Old Marysville Road and the canal, some changes to the obvious existing roadway network to accommodate that. These are some alternatives that we've developed for the South Beale interchange. You'll notice that each of them shows the interchange on the west side of State Route 65. Here's South Beale, just to orient you. This is where you have those left turns that the trucks are coming in and out of South Beale Road. This is where you have the 4 lanes and transitioning to the 2 lanes for the existing State Route 65. So in these various alternatives, and you can see there's various options that could be looked at, and through a project study report and project report process, a very prescribed delivery process that you work through to do your CEQA and NEPA clearance and work with Caltrans to finally select a location for an interchange and get your project approved. Those are the next steps for this interchange. And it's important to lock that location in, because someday, let's say you pick this one, there might be an opportunity to build it even in phases. Maybe the interchange goes in, or maybe this grade crossing of the railroad connects to an at-grade crossing. But you don't know whether to put that crossing here or there or here until you go through that project approval process. And so those would be some of the early next steps that you want to do for a Beale project. Similarly, at the south end, there is an opportunity to perhaps build a local road improvement. And these are similar yet different, and they're drawn that way on purpose so I can highlight a couple things. When you do a local road first and you begin to then try to protect the right-of-way for a future freeway, you have to limit access to this roadway. Well, if you were to build, let's say, this one and bring it right into where you're doing your future interchange, well, how are these properties going to have access? You know, if you look at some opportunity for a local road that maybe breaks off from the alignment sooner, in the future, you could build the freeway component and then terminate this roadway while still providing access on either side. As you move into the next phases of the project, you start looking at, you know, this land that is left here. If you pick an alignment on this side, this would be the ultimate. Here's Sheridan. This is the old State Route 65 that dead ends about here now. It could be connected to existing State Route 65 that would become a local road. And that could then be your boulevard up through Sheridan and on to the South Beale interchange. That it provides access to this land. You can only push this so close and still get up and over the railroad. And so you start to look at, well, what is the land impact here and the development potential or agricultural potential of this land compared to this land? What's the stub out that you're going to leave behind? So those are the things that in the next step as part of project report or project report light, if this is a local road, that you would go through in your next step. So theoretically, as you move through these various processes and work your way into delivering these 3 different projects, and in the next round of discussions, we'll talk about whether it makes sense to do the next step on both projects to advance them along, or does it make sense to prioritize one over the other? That's yet to be determined, and we'll just talk about that when we come back the next time. But the idea is now you've eaten part of the elephant, and in the future, you could create a crossing of the railroad somewhere in this vicinity and extend your highway in this vicinity and bring it around. An old, you know, Rancho Road could connect up. And this is just an example of one of the alternatives we picked for this, this drawing. You could then have your boulevard, your local road, this becomes the local road, connect all the way down now, all the way to Lincoln, that you could convert to a local road and have your State Route 65 coming around. Speaking about State Route 65, I just wanted to touch a little bit more in detail. People will say, well, why don't you just do the whole route adoption first, make sure you know exactly where everything is going to be, everywhere there is to know. Well, it's a very long, complex process to do a route adoption. Caltrans would take the lead. They'd basically take control of it, cost you about $2 million to get it done, take several years. And in the meantime, you'd be locked up on everything else. So is that really where you want to spend your first $2 million if you really don't have any money to build the bypass? So the thought is maybe not. Maybe it's better to look at some projects, look at South Beale Interchange, look at the Wheatland Expressway as their own projects and try to move those forward while protecting the future. And the realignment, could still be done in the future. So if, you folks think that's a good idea, our next steps would be to start to cost out the various delivery steps for each of those projects. And you can see here the list of the different preliminary engineering, environmental studies, project approval, design, and then you get to construction and construction support. So you can start kind of planning those over time. How much do you need to do these first steps on those projects? Then we also think it's a good idea, and we have a traffic consultant on our team that could do a little sensitivity analysis of the Beale Interchange and the Wheatland Expressway to demonstrate what kind of benefit they would have from a traffic point of view. And that we think could be beneficial when opportunities, calls for projects come for grant opportunities. And so that information can be used to leverage funds and apply for funds, as well as to make sure you're doing the right thing. We also wanted to mention that when we talked with PCTPA staff, that they mentioned the Sheraton Municipal Advisory Committee was very active when they were working on the Lincoln bypass, and they suggested we reach out to Placer County for, I guess, permission, if you will, to contact their MAC and ask the Sheraton Advisory Committee if they have any input or thoughts related to the South connection. From what PCTPA told me, they are glad that the freeway has been rerouted. They're happy there's not a lot of traffic there on old State Route 65, and that they're very attentive and like to be included. So that's something we can do in the next step. And then basically it's, figuring out the various steps for the different projects, the funding for the different steps, and presenting to you then an implementation strategy to review in a meeting like this in the months ahead. So with that, I don't know what happened to the screen, but I'll put it back, maybe. We can go to questions, and I can go back to perhaps one of the slides. Not sure what happened. There we go.
So does the board have any questions and comments?
I have a question. I'm a new guy, so you've been through some meetings that I haven't been involved in, but at the same time, we have a project that's going in Yuba County to our economic development lawn Hadamia. And is there any way that we could combine efforts to not so much save money, it's save time and duplication of efforts with Caltrans and SACOG, because we would get a big partner in there if we did in Beale. And I'm just throwing it up against the wall here, but it seems that this is the key to the improvement of Yuba County. And if we can put our heads together and expand the brain power here, I don't see why we wouldn't consider doing that, at least having a meeting with Hadamia to see if there's anything that we can work with them on.
Andy, I'll just give a brief comment on that, and then I'll let either Mike or Kevin maybe talk some more about it. But you know, you're right on point with that. You know, there's a lot of different efforts going on, and there is some overlap between them, between what SACOG is doing, between what SYTIA is doing, and between what the water agency is doing. You know, the good news, as you pointed out, is Lon and his team are involved in 2 of those efforts. And actually, you know, I think bringing him in to keep him in the loop of what's going on with respect to this is also very important. I know he's also working with the city of Wheatland as well. And so, you know, from where I sit, it does not seem at this point like it's different people doing different things, trying to accomplish, right, the same thing. We really are working together, even though it may not appear to you like that yet. But in my experience, there is collaboration between all of those different things that are occurring that you mentioned. So staff can maybe provide some more details.
You know, I'm of the theory, measure twice and cut once, you know, yeah. And it's, you know, because this is a key to the South County and future prosperity for other counties north of us. And I'm just, because of the involved entities, Beal is a big one. And I think that we should also involve someone from the casino in some of these decisions. And I'm just, like I said, I'm a new guy on the block.
No, you're dead on. And I do believe that there have been some conversations with Hard Rock, in addition to, as was mentioned, there were conversations with Beal. And so those things are happening, and it's great that you bring them up because they are important.
Those are employers number 1 and number 2 in our county.
Yeah. Mike, anything to add to that?
If I could, thank you, Gary. I think you hit it on the head as well. We are working in conjunction, and there are kind of multiple efforts working in parallel, but we're not working in silos. We are all working together. So we will tap any extra input from Lon and his group that could benefit us, and vice versa. And then we're keeping Beal and on the forefront, you know, as key players. We have reached out and had dialogue, but they will continue to be kept part of the group throughout the process.
Any other thanks, Mike. Additional comments and questions from directors?
Well, I'd just add, we do have a couple of landowners on this call with us. So I think, you know, the representation and outreach has been there. I think we need to continue and make sure we don't forget anybody, right? And bring in as many parties as possible. But I also think, though, that, you know, with all that we're talking about growth-wise in the South County, I'm sure glad we're working on this now, because I don't know how long we can wait. You know, we need to get this thing going as fast as we possibly can, because it, you know, I don't think the traffic is going to get any better soon. So at least I'm not thinking it is.
That's fairly obvious.
You know? Yeah. So you know, I'm really encouraged with where we are so far, and you know, I don't know if there's something we're supposed to vote on tonight or not, but you know, I certainly would move. You know, let's move towards the next steps.
Yeah.
Thanks, Director West. Any comments from you, Director Pendergraft?
No, I'm just listening and learning.
Okay. I have some comments. First, I absolutely love these diagrams. I think they're super easy to follow and understand, and they present just the overall projects very well. I like how the different projects have different color codings, and I really appreciate you know, how the bypass is you know, kind of color coded in yellow as a future project, and you can see how it would interact with, you know, potentially the South Beale Road Interchange project and the East Wheatland Expressway project. You know, I really appreciate that we're not trying to eat the elephant at once. Like you said, $300 million. You know, it'd be a long time potentially to get all that funding. And as Director West mentioned, you know, we can't wait 20 years to start on this, right? And hopefully it wouldn't be that long. But you know, we need to start tomorrow, or today, which we actually are, right? By having this meeting and doing this study and moving all of these efforts forward. I really like, you know, the concept of the East Wheatland Expressway, you know, as a local roadway that then later can be converted to the southern piece of the bypass. In my mind, I think it helps to unlock some of the areas east of Wheatland, and hopefully remove some traffic, you know, from the main Highway 65 corridor in the short term, and helps take care of that. And so I loved all the goals. I like the projects. I'm definitely on board with moving forward as well to the next steps that you brought up. I did have one question, because I know we get this from the public all the time. So, and I know this is a crystal ball question. So, but, you know, as we look at these various projects, if we assume that, you know, the SYTIA board said, hey, we want to move forward with, you know, next steps on all of them, but, you know, understanding that, you know, the project number 4, the actual completion of the bypass, is probably the one that's a little further out, and we're going to move forward in these other projects first. Is there kind of an estimated timeline on, hey, when would we potentially build, you know, if everything lined up, when would we potentially build the South Beale Road interchange, and when would we potentially build the East Wheatland Expressway? I mean, you know, are those, you know, and then when, you know, potentially down the road after that would you know, the full bypass be able to be completed? And I know those all depend on, yeah, I see Director Pendergraph there, and I know that's the answer, right? Is it all depends on money. But
all it takes is money.
Yeah, but, you know, maybe just some really rough estimates, you know, so that when people ask us, hey, are we, you know, are we expect to break ground next year on the bypass? I mean, I think we know the answer to that, but, you know, do we expect to break ground next year on, you know, the East Wheatland Expressway? Or, you know, can we confidently say that, you know, in 5 years, we'd hope to have that under construction? Or, you know, so just maybe an estimate.
Mike, I'm not sure if you want to take this one. I'll jump in there. Kevin Mallon with Yuba County. Maybe we'll break it into pieces. So the phase 2 of the Plumas Lake Boulevard interchange, that's a project that is already in final design. Even though it's in final design, there's still several steps before we break ground for construction. And so, and I'm gonna use timelines with money is no object, right? This is all just the reality. You know, we have plenty of money. It's just the reality of going through the next steps. So for that Plumas Lake Boulevard interchange, phase 2, you're 2 years out, even where we're at in that process, to where you see dirt moving and a project under construction. So when you look at that South Beale interchange project and the Wheatland Expressway projects, even if money was no object and we started today on those next steps, you're probably 5 years out before you'd actually see construction, just because of all of the steps between where we're at today and where you need to be in order to break ground. Hopefully that helps from a timeline perspective.
Sorry, I see we have some public that wishes to speak as well. So before I move on to the public, any additional director comments?
Yeah, I would just add one more thing. I think that when we look at these projects, we need to make sure that we're looking at them from the eye of economic development and jobs creation, because I think that they all have that potential. And I know from my time on SACOG that there's a lot more talk now about what projects can bring jobs and economic development. And so I think as we discuss these projects, you know, that's kind of, you know, one of the philosophies, one of the things we should always discuss is you know, look what it's going to do for us in the South County, because it's going to bring jobs, it's going to bring economic development, it's going to bring prosperity, it's going to bring tax revenue, all those things that, you know, that we're looking for. So it's not just a road. It's not just a piece of road. It's not just traffic, you know, easing traffic congestion. It's economic development as well.
And I'll just add one other thing, Gary. With us going to the north side instead of the south side, number one, years ago, we looked at the south side when this initial design or concept was done. The south side has a lot of drainage issues. So the south side is 65. So if you went to the south side, you would run into a lot of drainage and water problems. The other thing I will say too, going on the north side, we got to be careful that we don't approach the base to where it shuts their runway down. So we've got to remember that as well, because I don't know all the rules or whatever, but if you put it at a certain angle, it's going to shut that. It's going to potentially make that runway not accessible as it is now. So we've got to keep that in mind as we're doing this design as well. And Kevin, I know I see you're listening, but make sure that we've got to make sure that that's done as well, because we don't want to lose that runway. Through
the chair, that's where Lon comes in handy if he's got a general on his staff that they have a way of getting the point across, and they would help us out in any way possible, I think. So.
Okay, thanks for those comments, Director Pendergraft. The individuals that had their hands up appear to be no longer online, or they don't have their hands up anymore. So, through
the chair, I do have one.
I see them. I see two. So I guess we'll go with Julie first.
Give me one moment. It's not.
Hi, Julie, by the way.
I'm sorry. I think I closed that one off. Let me go back and find her. I'm having issues.
You have been disconnected.
I still see her there. She's still there.
Yeah, thanks for your input, Julie.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and key up Dina, and then I'll go back and grab Julie.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, Dina, you can go ahead and address the board.
There you go. I'm unmuted. Hi, this is Dina Webb-Lumbert. Thank you for holding the Zoom meeting so that we can all attend during COVID and attend remotely. I appreciate it. I really like the idea that you provided options on the map. So there may be 3 options for each of the projects. What is the process for choosing those options? How will you go about making a determination of which one will actually be the plan moving forward?
It's a great question. Mike, would you like to address that, or Liz, whichever?
I can throw in my 2 cents and then Liz can elaborate on it. So when the next step, once the comprehensive implementation strategy is done and the project components start to move forward, the next step is what they call project study report, which, and then the step beyond that is an actual project report. But those are where we look in detail at the specific project, the different options and the pros and cons of each option. And we kind of, there will be some, also some public discussions. And then we would involve Caltrans in that process as well, because it ultimately will be a part of their facilities. So they would be approving the project study report and the project report. And then once those are done, then you move into design further down the road. But so those are the next steps when this would be discussed more in detail. Liz, do you have anything to add to that?
Just a little bit. You covered it well. You think of the project study report as kind of your alternatives analysis, where you try to go from an infinite number of alternatives to maybe a handful. And you've now collected your topographic information, your drainage information, your environmental information, and you start to cost them and rank them and try to focus in on what is probably your most accomplishable alternatives. You do a lot of public outreach. As you move into the project report phase, that's where you do your CEQA and your NEPA evaluation. So you start having additional public opportunities for public input. You get more detail. You get through the project approval process at the end of NEPA and CEQA. And so that's where the board and the city council at some point would then have the opportunity to actually approve the project in detail. And then it would go into final design. So at that point, you know, you'd know the widths of the roads and where exactly they were going to go. And there'd be many opportunities to look at alternatives and impacts.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great question. So now we'll move on to Julie.
Yes, Julie has been unmuted.
Thank you for that. So Julie Hansen, I represent landowners who have property in Wheatland. And we basically are that stretch of what's on the map here for that Wheatland Expressway between the Bear River and Spencerville Road. So, you know, it's exciting that you have formed a JPA and that you're working together. A lot of things, you know, require that coordination back to what you guys already discussed, economic development, public safety, frankly. There's a lot of good things. So I'm happy to see this. Liz, really appreciate your presentation. And, you know, we'll want to be actively involved, have had conversations with Lon Hadamia. Certainly he's looking at some things here in Wheatland and a lot of things really right in this area of where this, you know, East Wheatland Expressway is going to be coming through. So we'd obviously like to be able to participate in, you know, further discussions about the best alignments. And, you know, to Liz's point, you know, the local road versus the future bypass or expressway, you know, those are going to be important things as we're doing some land planning efforts in that area. And, you know, again, back to economic development, employment center type stuff is going to be happening in that area. And again, you know, Lon Hadamia, Doug Svensson doing the work there. Anyway, just excited that you're looking at it, in a phased approach and just want to be able to participate in that. Obviously has tremendous impacts when you're looking at something of this size and scale. And really, again, between the Bear River and Spencerville Road there, that's our property. So just appreciate the opportunity, you know, to continue to work with you and excited about what work you've already done here.
Great. Glad you were here today, Julie, and thank you for sharing that. I know we look forward to continuing to work with you on these things.
Thank you.
Okay, so as far as I know, I'll ask again, any additional public comment? Okay, any additional comments from directors? I guess I would just confirm that staff feels like they have direction from the board. Okay. Then if that's it, we will move on to board and staff member reports. And so we'll start with Director West. Do you have anything?
I do not have anything to report at this time. Thank you, Chair Bradford.
Director Pendergraph?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Director Vasquez?
No, I'm a new guy and just looking. It's an exciting endeavor.
Okay. I don't have anything either. Do we have anything from maybe Mike or Dane?
I just, if I could, Gary, I would just like to thank everybody for, you know, hearing the presentation, providing the solid feedback. Just for clarification, it sounds like from the board member standpoint, we're headed in the right direction. There's no directional shift proposed or that the board has in mind. Is that fair to say?
That's my understanding. If someone disagrees on the board, now would be the time to speak up.
No, that
works.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll continue full steam ahead then. And once we get the next components together, we'll do a follow-up presentation with your board and get final direction at that point, and then hopefully one more meeting where we'll adopt the study and take it from there.
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. So, okay, I guess with that, we will go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you everyone so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
guys later.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
We can show you how. Live streaming can be simple and not expensive. You may already have the basic tools right in your hand. But it's more than just pushing live to communicate effectively. That's where Yuba-Sutter.live and Live Streaming YS on Facebook can help you. Make it easy to jump in. Just give us a call at 530-301-2931 or visit our website, www.yuba-sutter.live. Yuba-Sutter's home of live streaming and live streaming tools, live streaming services, technology, and training. Live streaming is Yuba-Sutter.live.
All aboard!